Hello friends, my name is Pavel Filippov. Right now, I am in the office of the company, Nova, and it is here that the world airship construction will be revived. This is not Europe, this is not China, this is happening here with us in Russia. We are in Moscow, and it is here that a Russian company will build airships.
Russia was already the largest air navigation power in the world, which quickly grew and maintained its leading positions for a long time.
The first project for a large cargo airship was proposed in the 1880s by Konstantin Eduardovich Tsiolkovsky, but unfortunately at that time he had neither the opportunity nor the means to realize such an aircraft.
At that time, airships were not yet being built in the Russian Empire, but they were closely monitoring their development in other countries to expedite the process. Higher, stronger. The first domestic training airship was lifted into the air in 1908. And as you might have guessed, it outperformed the German Zeppelins in terms of climb rate. By 1914, Russia had the largest air fleet with 20 airships, while Germany had only 18, despite having started building their airships earlier.
It is commonly believed that the decline of the airship era is associated with the disaster of the Zeppelin company's airship, namely the Hindenburg, which crashed on May 6, 1937.
During the landing attempt, the airship caught fire and was completely consumed in just 34 seconds. However, more than half of the people on board managed to escape. Out of 97 people, 36 perished, which is of course tragic. But compared to airplane crashes, it shows a higher survival rate. However, the disaster shook the world, and the level of active airship operations simultaneously decreased in almost all countries. But decreased does not mean finished. Nowadays, one can see how modern passenger airships fly over Germany. And this is not a trailer for the new movie Back to the Future, but a real tourist business being developed by the very company Zeppelin.
Today, we will have a flight on an airship. This is my first flight on an airship. We'll share my emotions and impressions with you today, and I will try to capture everything that happens so that you can see it all with your own eyes. We will also go to the Zeppelin Museum, the Museum of Airship Construction. We will learn more about the history of airships and about Count Zeppelin himself. Well friends, we have arrived at the location and our flight will be soon 1.5 hours of flying on the airship. And where are we? We are right next to the airport. This is part of the city's airport. This is very convenient. It answers the question of what to do about the infrastructure for airships. As you can see, all existing airports can be used without any problems, or those located nearby. All necessary flight permissions are in place. Well, and all the other necessary infrastructure. Here, much immediately indicates that we are in a place where airships fly. Firstly, they can be seen in the sky right as you approach this place. Secondly, there are a large number of hangars where they are stored. There are also many various statues and monuments depicting the airship. Well, let's go and see how we will go through security and board the airship. We see check-in, flight registration. Let's take care of that. We received the ticket. The registration took about 3 minutes. Everything was very quick, just like a plane ticket. We move on. Here we have comfortable restaurants. Everything that could be done to rest before the flight, after the flight, and there we see the place where the airships will be arriving. Well, we are waiting for landing. As you can see, we are at the airport. There you can see an airplane taking off. And here we have a dirigible flying. Look at it, right? It's so impressive, of course. Now the passengers will disembark and we will board it. It will be our flight. Well, of course, the dirigible looks very impressive. It is worth noting that airplanes have just taken off here as well. In other words, we are at a fully operational airport where dirigibles and airplanes feel perfectly comfortable with each other.
Note the number of people wanting to ride in a dirigible. Tourists from all over the world flock here every day. It seems that no one is bothered by the history of the disaster, even though no one hides it here. On the contrary, special attention is paid to the memory of the Hindenburg.
Well, we are starting to take off very effortlessly and quite smoothly and quickly. And here are the very hangars where the dirigibles are stored, which we have already talked about today. It's great that dirigibles can coexist with regular airplanes and the infrastructure of a civil airport. Of course, this immediately expands the possible locations for the operation of dirigibles and the safety of the flights themselves.
The breathtaking views unfolded during the flight, and Pavel imagined the incredible beauty that could be seen in Russia when dirigibles would once again begin their flights. By the way, let's return to the history of dirigibles in Russia. It is worth noting that we have never halted their development and construction. Recently, we saw the factory in the city of Kirzhach, Vladimir Oblast, with our own eyes. This is a true forge of Russian dirigible construction, where all technologies have been preserved. We will use them to design and launch next-generation dirigibles so that the next flight can be filmed from a Russian dirigible flying over Altai or Baikal. But for now, we are returning to Germany.
Yes, of course, the thought immediately comes to mind. Why don't dirigibles fly between cities? It would really be very convenient. We took off very quickly and didn't waste time on registration. And accordingly, it took no more time than if we had arrived at a regular bus station, for example. Accordingly, a dirigible does not need much space for takeoff. You may have noticed that there is a very small area where it lands. And in principle, the landing place for the dirigible can be organized anywhere. And just like that, we took off easily. Now we are continuing our journey very comfortably. If, for example, flights between Moscow and St. Petersburg were possible, I think it would be in high demand because, besides the enjoyment we get, it is really useful, truly fast, comfortable, and necessary. Of course, touching a real dirigible, seeing that they fly here every day, watching dirigibles constantly pass by us, as if we are just driving down the road with cars passing by, you begin to understand that all of this is more than real. Some people believe that dirigibles were used a long time ago and are no longer in use, but when you come here, it seems like something completely ordinary. And you understand that they exist. They are truly beautiful. They are really very comfortable and safe. And there is an even greater desire to make every effort to ensure that they appear in Russia. The views are impressive. We are flying, enjoying ourselves. Of course, for the Zeppelin company, this is a very good, serious business. It is not just entertainment. Airships can and do bring in money even now. The Zeppelin company earns quite a significant amount of money, both from tourist airships and occasionally selling airships to third-party companies and organizations. Therefore, even at this level, yes, it is already possible to earn money even by organizing such flights. But even here, there is state funding.
And while we continue the flight, I would like to introduce our partner from Germany, Ivan Buchbach, who has been enjoying the flight together with Pavel all this time. Soon, Ivan Buchbach will interview the conductor and the pilot, and he will also give us a tour of the Zeppelin Museum.
We fly to two fronts. If the weather is not suitable in this case, then usually from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then about 2 pairs during that time, from 9 to 7 o'clock, in 2 floors. We will not fly for 12 hours, and then on Friday there will be a transition to the crew.
And will there perhaps be 2 flights together?
Yes, during the high season they fly together. It is possible that one of them will be on tour. We also invite flights to other locations, for example in Frankfurt, Cologne, Bonn, or Minsk. Or we have been on the road all over Europe. You can ask the pilots for details, but overall it is a very safe device. Helium is a jack. It does not compress. That is, it is safer, for example, than a Zeppelin. The aft gas is an engine, but it does not fit snugly against the gondola. And a Zeppelin, for example, can only descend without the help of an engine. That is, if you are in the air, you will fall. Therefore, this is a very important method.
I was already preparing for the Western Flight Korea in the summer, and I started flying in May 2023 on this flying ship. That's right. Anyone who wants to become a pilot in Western Flight Korea must already be a professional pilot, that is, either on manual wheels or on aviation ships, and we have colleagues from a wide variety of different backgrounds, including those who have experience in civil aviation and those who have experience in military aviation. For instance, we have a colleague who comes from a civil aviation background and another colleague who comes from a military aviation background. Personally, I used to fly in civil aviation, and now I am here, contributing my skills and knowledge to this team. You asked me about the mechanism behind it. And while we could embark on the laser boat right now, it's important to note that eventually, as time progresses, we inevitably experience a reduction in speed. At a speed of approximately 30 km per hour, the levers will not have any significant effect. And that is why we essentially focus on the noise of vector control, meaning that we control it effectively and precisely with our 4-propeller system.
A flight on a Zeppelin is amazing. It is a different mode of transport. It cannot be compared to an airplane, and it certainly cannot be compared to an unmanned hot air balloon. It's something else. The flight is completely comfortable and safe, meaning you feel it while flying. It's not scary at all. At the same time, the airship requires very little space to take off, and it is controllable. It's as if it takes all the advantages of an airplane and all the advantages of a helicopter. At the same time, you know that it is much cheaper than similar vehicles that perform similar tasks. But when it comes to tourism, as we saw today, it probably has no competitors. Because from an airplane, you simply don't have time to admire the surrounding landscapes as it flies too quickly. There are small windows there, but here the windows are large and open, allowing you to enjoy the view as much as you want, and you can walk around the cabin. From a tourism perspective, this is of course incredible and holds tremendous potential. And here the Zeppelin company is focused on tourism, and they are making a lot of money from it, so this direction is already commercially successful. This is where there is already money in airships. Of course, this is far from all the places where airships can be used. Even on such a Zeppelin, I am sure one can easily... Making flights between cities would be in demand. It would be convenient and comfortable because it doesn't take much time for boarding and disembarking, and there are no long queues like in airports, for example. I don't know why such flights are not organized yet, but I am sure they will come to that as everything is developing very actively here. The museum features various exhibits, from models of airships to their actual parts, as well as books and brochures dedicated to airships.
But of course, the most interesting part is the history of the development of Zeppelins and the Hindenburg.
Here behind us is probably the design bureau or something like that. We will briefly go. Inside, there will be a small tour about the development of the airship. And afterwards, there is a door that leads to the hangar. And there we see a Zeppelin under construction. At the moment, as we have already mentioned, barely. In flight here over Friedrichshafen. And now the third one is currently under construction. This is Count Zeppelin, a renowned visionary. He is the developer and builder and the initiator of this extraordinary and incredible airship project known as the Zeppelin. Count Zeppelin. We see him in the photograph. How is this field of airships maintained? It mentions staff and various mechanics. Here we see how the ship is operated. Here are the technical data and speeds. Length is 75 meters. Maximum width is 20 meters. Height is 17 meters. By the way, what is this? It's called a balloon, just a balloon. So we were arguing. What we see as the shell on top, right, and down below, what inflates and deflates, can be seen. This is the gondola where we, as passengers, were located. It can accommodate between 14 to 16 seated passengers with a cabin volume of 29 cubic meters. Well, technically speaking, maximum speed is 125 km per hour. It is stated that the range is 1,000 km. And the maximum height that a Zeppelin can reach is 3,000 kilometers. Now we can see this structure above us in real format. It is made of metal, and we can see the assembly of several elements. Well, if we look at all the pictures, we can see quite simply the assembly and comprehensive details as it takes place in the hangar. If we very briefly look through the door, we will see either a balloon or perhaps something possibly covered, and there are some installations happening below. Assembly of the airship. Here, it is possible to position 3 airships. 2 are currently on a journey and transporting tourists, and 1 is in the process of assembly. Now we are rising near the history of the Zeppelin. Vitae will briefly cover the most important and interesting moments. Here is the birthplace of this. These were the very first ships that were developed by Count Zeppelin or various scientists. This was the very first ship that flew or ascended. Here are several photographs that we see. It was the first flight of such a ship in 1900, apparently on June 6th. This is where the entire history of Zeppelin airships began. And here we see the first large airship of this kind, which was developed for the army, because at that moment there was a great deal of interest and the army wanted to use it for its applications. Well, we can see what kind of engine was used at that time. Here it is illustrated or shown what the balloons were made of. They are cow intestines. For this, 700,000 cows were used, gathered from all over Europe, Russia, and everywhere from all around the world, in order to create such large inflatable balloons that they could lift this ship upwards. A total of 130 ships were built. The 129th, what we just saw right ahead, there was an accident and it exploded right. And the 130th ship never rose up. This marked the end of the history of the Zeppelin. And here we can specifically see how Zeppelin, number 128 it seems, circled the globe in 40 days. Here all the connections where the airship flew are shown in red, these different colors, and here we see red. This represents the route over 40 days around this area. A flight around the Earth was made. We are now in the salon that was once in its actual size, in the large ship Hindenburg, which burned down. Here we see the ascent ladder, the stairs, and now we will show you. Let's go. Here we have the cabins, and here we will show you where people rested when people traveled and could find their positive place, read, relax, and look out the windows. As we see, the huge windows that provide the opportunity to observe the landscape outside and enjoy what travelers do. So clearly and around them what is impossible to see from a bird's eye view. And here is the map we talked about downstairs, where various connections and routes are shown, illustrating how people discovered our beautiful world. This was done through ships, airplanes, and airships.
This is all luxury. Luxury from a century ago. That's absolutely right. In 1930, this is what the interior of the airship looked like, where people could truly enjoy the flight. Imagine what can be done today with modern technologies, how comfortable an airship can be. This is, of course, a completely different mode of transport. Speaking of sizes, we are actually in a small compartment just to understand the atmosphere. And one can try to imagine how much. It was indeed big. It really was like an airborne hotel, an air yacht, an airborne liner.
With a size of about 10 meters, a maximum of 12. And the liner itself was 275 meters long. It's like a large cloud moving across the sky.
We have once again returned to the Nova office, and in the near future, modern airships will be built here. A large team of designers, technicians, consultants, and other specialists that the company needs is already forming here. And I am confident that very soon we will restore historical justice and once again become leaders in global airship construction. And of course, this will happen thanks to caring people who want to support Russian innovations and technologies. Friends, if you want to keep track of how the project and Nova are developing and see when we launch the first airship of our own production, be sure to subscribe to all our social media and also follow the link below to read detailed information about the project. Remember that the more actively you support the project, the faster it will be realized and the company will launch its own. Thank you all, and see you in the next videos.